Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. LD, although he promised to be here this week, I am having him do some healing sessions out. So he's out on another mission for me. So I could be here and introduce you to Phil Gruber, who is magnificent. He grew up in the same town or city as I did, so we are both Jersey people. And he's done so much. He's a critically acclaimed feature in the critically acclaimed film, The Indigo Evolution. He has a lot of passion. He's very kind spirited. He has a sparkling wit and intelligence. Um, he's funny as heck, people, and you'll get to meet him. He's very, very good. He's well known internationally. And what else can I say? Why don't I just let him continue introducing himself? Hi, Phil. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, you're doing a wonderful job reading that
I
bio.
know.
Yeah, I'm
I
from
did.
the entrée des dragons, les dragons,
The dragon.
as we say, Dragon's Den. No, it's
Yes.
really a pleasure. Thank you so much, Glenda.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell the audience about you and how you grew up, what got you here.
Well, what got me here was, when I'm speaking, we all have our areas of specialization. We're all good at something,
Right.
hopefully. When people are impressed or like overly impressed or meta impressed, I talk about with what I teach. This is this is a lifetime. It's a lifetime of study. It's a lifetime of research. And I've had wonderful teachers and mentors, and I still continue to look at, I'm still open to learning. I had a walk-in experience
Mm-hmm.
when I was 6 years old, and we can talk about that a little bit later. I think a lot of us have had similar experiences. We may less into consciousness, but I had a classic walk-in situation that I call a soul braid. When I was 6 years old, I was hit by a car, and this car head on. We estimate it was Roberta Eig's father. Hi, Roberta, if you're out there. Was going about 60 miles an hour, hit me head on. The force of the impact threw me up in the air, Grumman Avenue, on the hillside border, up in the air and about 50 feet down the street. But not when I landed, not a scratch. And I remember it was a soft landing. This is a kind of situation in which there's direct angelic intervention, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a contract that you're here to fulfill.
Yeah.
There will be direct intervention. And I know this, that they are they don't like to station here or to be active on the physical plane or the three-dimensional plane. They take a risk. But when it's this
Mm-hmm.
type of situation that you've got to stay on the planet, you've got work to do, there will be direct intervention. And there was. And the walk-in, as soon as the walk-in came in, say, the force of the impact, it hit something. And the force of it, but I was in some kind of bubble. I consider this what we call a soul braid, and I'll talk about that later. Soul braiding. It was with me to walk out. So I shared consciousness with what I believe is one of my higher identities, probably a soul identity. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
for the better part of 10 years, I came with I had incredible downloads that I, of course, and a lot of us, when we get this, we have no reference. We don't understand what it is. Lots of children have imaginary playmates, but like angels, I knew their names,
Mm-hmm.
all these orders of angels. And my mother wanted to send me to a psychiatrist. And if maybe later on I'll fetch a photo of me just after the the car accident, just after the walk-in, and you see there's a distinct change. You can see it in the eyes. There's so much soul embodied at birth in that child.
Mhm.
Certainly before a lot of the parental karma kicks in, you see so much of the soul identity is in that child. You see mastership in their eyes. And you can see that in this photo, which I'll probably show a little bit later, or maybe at the end. So it walked out fully when I was about 16, 17, something like that. And I really didn't get to be about 16, 17. And I started to meet people, interest in magic, of course, and metaphysics. So I started
Mhm.
my researches early. I had the added benefit of an IQ that went from already genius to something totally off the scale, something to listen. That hasn't remained. Believe me, when my wife wants me to go shopping, I have to write everything down. I'm not the person I was. A lifetime of substance abuse will do that. My life is a cautionary tale in many ways. So I had a lot of, and I just seemed to know stuff. Of course, I've had great teachers,
Mhm.
and I did join a magical fraternity. I'll be nameless. Okay. So I had access to a lot of private libraries, and I learned
Right.
how to access information remotely or directly from what I call, or what is called by guardian races, the Dora Torah, or the Cloister Dora Torah. And actually, I would like to, if you would like me to, I'd like to get into where certainly my information comes from. And I think the source of all higher knowledge, if
Sure.
you would like me to start there.
Please go ahead.
Okay. And I really have a lot of, and I thanks go to the Guardian Alliance,
Mhm.
their representatives here, Easia. I mean, my that I have and still have, and that still inspire me to keep on
Mhm.
learning. Um, throughout human evolution, as we know, they're interdimensional races. They brought teachings to Earth. Why? In order to influence and direct the course of human evolution. And there were primary interdimensional races that were involved in our creation.
Mhm.
I'm not going to go into real detail, but we call them the Brenau. The Brenau. There is the Amethyst Order,
Mhm.
the Seraphite Gold Order. These are Brenau collectives from what we call densities 4 and 5. Densities 4 being the Christos, or dimensions 10, 11, and 12. The fifth density, dimensions 13 and 14 and 15. Rock collectives. Some
Mhm.
people know this as the Kirashe. This is even higher than the Avatar. These are beings of pure light,
Right.
pure wave form consciousness,
Mhm.
pure radiant light that can't interact with us directly. If they tried to enter our space, the earth would just be reduced to a cinder.
Right.
But they send out their smaller selves,
Right.
or smaller Merkaba vehicles, to interact with us.
Mhm.
Well, these three Brenau orders, these are we believe, the three founders race time matrix
Okay.
during the last seeding. Now, this is really interesting. When we talk about these great seedings, we're talking about
Mhm.
time cycles that are 950 billion year time cycles. We're not
Mhm.
talking about 15 or 14 or 16.3
Nah.
billion years. We're talking about time cycles that are 950 billion years. This is like the great mother taking a breath, let it mingle within her, right? And then taking that out breath and breathing everything out into creation. Wait about 950 billion years, go out for a smoke, whatever. Then bring it all back. And who knows how many cycles of 950 billion years there have been.
Right.
Maybe we're detecting in mainstream physics the background radiation from the last quote unquote Big Bang, of which now they're beginning to realize it was not a Big Bang. You know,
Mhm.
we can talk about that later too. But in 950 billion years ago, now these Brennau time periods, why? In an attempt to keep the history of humanity's original creation, the creation contract. Why we're here. I mean, Glenda, aren't these the most profound questions we ask
Yes,
ourselves? Who
definitely.
are we, right? Where do we come from? Why are we here? What's our purpose?
Mm-hmm.
These Brennau orders and their all their lower and lower identities, of which we are part of, we're
Hmm.
part of the one, right?
Right.
We're all part
Correct.
of the one. And our evolutionary blueprint, the evolutionary path through human consciousness, is to return to that state of adwonement. And the funny thing is, once you return to that state of full adwonement, what do? You go back into fragmentation.
Right.
Man is essentially a game player. There's a Latin term for this, homo ludens. Man is essentially a game player. I remember there was in the original Star Trek, there was
Mhm.
that episode where they get the Enterprise gets hijacked by these brains. They're just brains now. They don't need bodies, but brains.
Right.
So how far have they really gone? But anyway, their brains under glass or something. And
Hmm.
what they do is they hijack starships and they bring the crew down to fight as gladiators. You know why that is? And they bet imaginary money on it. Because nothing that you can do except play games, except play games of chance where you don't necessarily know the outcome. Man, it's
Right.
like the Olympian gods playing chess with us.
Hmm.
The only thing that floats their boat now is to play games. We're essentially game players. But anyway, these races visited humanity. Why? In an attempt, successful or not, through our history, to keep humanity's original contract and intended evolutionary, and that original co-evolution agreement made between these Brennau races in seeding our particular time matrix was called the Emerald Covenant.
Okay.
Now, I haven't done this in a long time. Maybe one of my first presentations on Can will be on the Wizard of Oz. I used to do it quite regularly when the New Life Expo would come into town.
Hmm.
Talk about the Wizard of Oz. L. Frank Baum, who wrote The Wizard of Oz, him and his wife had joined the Theosophical Society, the Ramayana sect of
Hmm.
the Theosophical Society, Chicago, Illinois. So if you look at The Wizard of Oz, especially through a theosophical lens, you see that there was such heavy duty information. The movie is great, but the book is even more cosmic in what he's bringing. There's massive information and data on many, many levels. But that emerald, the Emerald City, the Emerald Covenant. So that original Emerald Covenant was made 950 billion years ago among these fifth density living light beings. And in this agreement, it is believed that the Brennau orders, Tricia McKinnon works with the Brennau, by the way, also.
Oh, okay.
And her on the show, Trish is amazing. Uh, agreed to create various founders races
Hmm.
to feed life into all the density levels of our time matrix. Why? Why not? To create peaceful coevolution and the promise of ascension for all races. So this is, and it was these density five Brennau orders. They were directly involved with the creation of the original angelic human lineage on a planet that we know, some know as Tara, some
Hmm.
call it heaven, some call it Valinor. Tolkien called it Valinor. Tolkien, in his later interviews, was very candid about the fact that he wasn't making this stuff up.
Right.
That there really is a midden Earth or a middle Earth, a frequency
Hmm.
modulated zone between Earth and heaven. That the human lineage began on the planet Tara 560 million years ago. And this Emerald Covenant has been about 248,000 years ago. The Liran Anuhazi, Aaron Anahazi. Come to us by way of April 9th. Okay. When the Emerald Covenant was restated 248,000 years ago, I believe that was the time of the third seeding of the angelic human lineage. The density for this, again, these are dimensions 10, 11, and 12 that we understand as the Christos,
Right.
Christed beings, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Lyran Anuhazi, and Syrian Azurites from Sirius B, the blues, the Syrian blues of densities 2 and 3. These are angelic and archangelic soul and oversoul races. They presented a gift to us, to the earth human guardian races of the Emerald Covenant. And the gift, this gift was, and now this is the source, 99 and 44, 100%. Everything that comes out of my mouth comes from this massive library of information. This gift that was given to us 248,000 years ago, give or take, that detailed not only the history of our time matrix, that's 950 billion years of history, creation physics, ascension mechanics, the mechanics of operating what we call the Templar complexes, the series of stargates on the planet, the interdimensional stargates, and the stargates within us, the gates of light, as we call them in Kabbalah. And that seems to be our original creation contract too, is to be the guardians and custodians,
yes,
of the stargate. And what this gift, holographic recording discs. And you know how much information can be encoded even now with our technology. 12 small holographic discs that are called by many the Eternal Dora Torah, or the Cloister Dora Torah, or CDT plates. Accompanying these Dora Torah plates was a corresponding set of 12 larger discs called the Signet shields. Signet referring to stargates of what's called the interplanetary Templar complex, that you could access the stargate. See, this is why the Earth is so prized. This is why everybody comes here during ascension cycles, because it is through the Earth stargates. So during these periods of ascension or shift, everybody comes here, no matter what their agenda is, pro-human or not. Everybody comes because they know how important this planet is and what this planet is a gateway to. So the information, it's also interesting in that probably tomorrow I'll show the video from a little video clip, and anybody out there can look it up. It's from the movie The Time Machine, 1960, the one with Rod Taylor that Minnie used.
Many moons ago.
1960 was a great year for film. Continent, I think, came out in 1960. And in that movie, they actually show the Atlantean priest scientists creating human-animal hybrids and using large crystals, generator crystals, to generate power.
Right.
It's really interesting. And a lot of that was based on Plato's writings. But in The Time Machine, there's a scene where Weena of the Eloi takes Rod Taylor into a cave where there are all these really weird looking devices. There are books that turn to powder because they're so old. But she introduces him to the talking rings. And these are rings that you spin. Remember this? They're rings that you spin and you get the audio downloads of Earth's history. And I think this was H.G. Wells's understanding. And I will tell you, before we move on, I've tried to get into the Vatican archives. For some reason, I haven't been granted access. But I tell you, since then, I have seen libraries, massive underground libraries. Greg Braden, I think, still probably did many years ago, show photos that were taken of massive underground libraries, usually under monasteries, in the Far East, in the Himalayas, as we say. That make the Vatican archives look like your neighborhood library. the library on Osborne Terrace, or something.
Right.
This private joke between me and Glenda and anyone who's brought up in Newark, especially in the week section. It makes your neighborhood library. I can only do this with you, Glenda. I'm so happy. I can't do this with anybody else, And it really, I tell you, it even opens my heart more, you
Oh.
know, to be with you like this, long time. So
Mhm.
this is where I believe this is where my information comes from, and representatives that have been contracted, like Enoch, like Toth, like many throughout history, even
Right.
up to the present day, that have been contracted to be the revealing vehicles or
Mhm.
instruments. We would know this information, so we would finally understand, be given the opportunity to realize potentials that have existed within us as individuals and as a race to ascend.
Mm.
They're known as the freedom teachings. Why? Because it's the freedom not to be, a lot of teachers say we're born in captivity. We're born into the bondage of our mortal coils. We're
Mhm.
phase locked into biologically phase locked into a three-dimensional embodiment, going through cycles and cycles of incarnation. That doesn't have to be the case. We have these teachings now
Mhm.
that can really allow us the freedom to explore, the freedom to extend love to all of creation,
Exactly.
for all of us to be vehicles,
Mhm.
revealing vehicles. Now I know a lot of that is on the shoulders of the divine feminine. I think that's very, very important. Because now is the time. You know, I have a lot to say about
Yes,
it too.
definitely.
But yeah, so that's basically the source of the information. And did you have any questions, or do you want me to follow up on that?
Oh, please don't follow up on that. It's so fascinating, and I'm sure our audience they're captivated. There's a few people watching there, and they're
I'm
staying with us.
captivated too because I'm in a state of perpetual gratitude
Hmm.
for having found, and our lives, the zigzag of our lives. Sometimes we feel like pinballs and we're not in control.
Right.
Someone's at the flippers,
Yeah.
but we can. But the whole thing, I think, our teachings, yours, of Can, all the reason we're here certainly is to remind people of our true evolutionary destinies, the reason we're here, the purpose of our
Exactly.
lives, and
Exactly.
to remind people how rare and precious we are. I remember Jodie Foster, remember at the end of the movie Contact? I
Hmm.
can't remember the first part of her speech, but she, in that experience she had through the wormhole, part of it was to remind us how rare and precious we are,
Exactly.
all of us. And gratitude. It's funny that um, when I went to see Judy Satori last night, she has what she calls a gratitude pyramid now. A pyramid. Gratitude. I still believe and have always believed
Hmm.
that gratitude and forgiveness. There is no more powerful forces
Very true.
to heal us, to clear karma. Boy, I'll tell you, genuine gratitude can burn off karma like nobody's business.
Hmm.
Gratitude, love in the form of gratitude, the ones that radiate, that hold the most light, and by virtue of that can
Yeah.
radiate the most light, is forgiveness and gratitude, because it
Very
is
true.
the structure of the crystals, very specific crystalline structures, geometric structures that can hold and radiate that light. So
Mm.
just imagine if you become the living embodiment of gratitude, forgiveness, grace, all the higher, the spiritual the etiquette, the attitudes of
Mm.
spiritual mastery. Think about it. And not just lip service, if you really do become the living, walking, talking embodiments of these of this intelligence and this love, every crystal and microcrystal in your body will be able to hold and radiate that light.
Hmm. Your light will shine way before you even get there.
You become, that's right.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned, you talk about, you become a presence healer.
Right.
You heal by your presence alone. You
Hmm.
walk the world and you heal by your presence alone. Jesus, Yeshua would have said that you have the radiance of light.
Right.
You have that about you. I can't remember the exact term though. It will come back to me. But that's it. And I think the great, you heal by your presence alone.
Mm-hmm.
And gratitude also, even in terms of the secret, which has never really been secret,
Right.
that gratitude, Wallace Wattles, the science of getting rich, success through creative thought. Gratitude is not just giving thanks. Gratitude is a magnetic force which unites your brain and your solar plexus in the heart space. Charles Honnell, who wrote The Master Key, which I totally recommend everyone out there just do Google searches everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's back in 1910, 1960. It started out as a mail order program where Honnell you would get in the mail one less thing.
Right.
But in 1916, he got permission from his lodge. All these new thought, these transcendentalists, the new
Right.
thought authors, like Honnell, like Wallace Wattles,
Mm-hmm.
like my favorite one, William Walker Atkinson, who wrote in 1910, Thought Vibration or the Law of Attraction in the Thought World.
Right.
And there's nothing he wrote that you couldn't find in the teachings of the Christ, that you can't find the teachings of the Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Marcus Aurelius. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing that you can read right now that you can't read in his teachings.
Right.
Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, right? And gratitude is a magnetic force that unites your brain and your solar plexus in the heart space. That's where gratitude is held. And if you keep that, if you're in that state of perpetual and genuine and authentic gratitude, there's nothing it cannot heal.
Very true.
Gratitude, forgiveness. And I'm very big, all the stuff I talk about and all the, the $50 words and everything, it all comes down to, because some of this information has to be, it is by its nature, Glenda, complex.
Exactly.
We're talking about creation physics. We're talking about Ascension. And the fact is, angelic, even the angelic, I'm sure these children, before the parental karma kicks in and whatnot, they understand this.
Oh, yes. They see it. They know it. They feel it. Children are very open.
You can see it in their eyes, and in their crumpled up little faces. I think a lot of when they get upset, because they realize they're still conscious enough to realize that they're forgetting.
Yeah.
What they know, and it's all. It's never. It may be forgotten, but it's not lost. Like lost and found. It's there in the DNA.
Mm-hmm.
If people really, really understood the true traits, heredity, all that stuff with DNA, but that's not the main function and mechanism. DNA is an ascension mechanism. Ascension is all about the helixes fusing together and the strands fusing together, creating these very exotic ascension elements, hyper superluminal elements. Many of us know this, one of these elements, celestaline. This is why the crystal celestite is very, very powerful to use. It contains within it, and a lot of the channeled information that we're getting nowadays, Judy, for example, Jody, a lot of us that channel information, have you ever noticed, and out there, have you ever noticed that a lot of channeled information and channeled language is beginning to sound very similar?
Yes.
Right? A little bit of Native American, a little bit of languages, right? Well,
that's the way it happens to me too. So
that's because, it's because the first languages we're going to channel are the ones that are closest to us genetically.
Right.
That goes almost without saying. So the fifth and sixth dimensional parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that reside, the identities that reside in the soul matrix. This is fifth Pleiadian, sixth Sirian, seventh Arcturian, eighth Orionic, ninth Andromedan, 10th, 11th, and 12th the Christos. This is why we call it the cradle of Lyra or Lyra. It is the thing that unites us. And I will tell you in no uncertain terms, that the healing of humanity is probably only going to be accomplished when we really understand the common core of creation from which we all emerged.
Mm-hmm.
That there really is there are just races that have
Yes.
forgotten their eternal, their intrinsic divinity. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't think you can get it yourself or within yourself, then you'll try to get it through someone else.
Right.
And that's theft. If you don't think you can manifest it yourself, you will steal. You will
Mm-hmm.
try to attempt to steal it. So the gratitude is very, very important. Wallace Wattles, and not a lot of that is taught. These law of attraction coaches, even Rhonda Byrne, God bless her, created a step certainly for people to enter into this understanding of what the law of attraction truly is. But to understand the true nature of gratitude, that's more than giving thanks. It's actually a magnetic force.
Yes, it is.
And that solar plexus, very important too. So going back to the master key, that's a 24-week program, the purpose of which is to be able to control your thoughts.
Okay.
And to be able to focus and stay focused. That's, Glenda, I think that's the reason a lot of these very well-intentioned programs
Mm-hmm.
of healing, very well-intentioned programs of personal and spiritual development, they ultimately fail. It's not necessarily the quote-unquote fault of the facilitator or even the content. It's people's inability to control their thoughts, to hold the focus, especially when we're in higher states, to be able to hold the focus of being in these higher states. That's the key. And the master key teaches you how to control thoughts. And that's why I think any serious program, a
Mm-hmm.
dedicated program of spiritual personal development, the master key, even in my personal mentorships, of which there are a few vacancies, few and far between.
There you
They,
go. And people can grab all that and get in touch with you. So
if
that's for
anybody's
sure.
interested in pursuing any of this further, I've
Here we
been,
go.
COVID came in, of course, a lot of us went online.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it was a really cool thing. I probably would not have thought of doing these online mentorship programs. They're anywhere from, well, they used to be minimum 6 months, a year, 2 years.
Right.
They're one call a week. There's also a group we
Mm-hmm.
call the Ascension group. One call a week. Oh, but I have managed to. I've started to put together these programs, a shorter programs, more affordable, shorter programs for keenly interested in this aspect
Right.
or that aspect of the work, because it's massive. It's like I was alluding to before. You can only simplify these teachings to a degree. You know this, or
Yes.
they be just over diluted and oversimplified. And if they become over diluted and oversimplified, they lose a lot of their force.
Right. The energy
And
behind it, it's not as
yeah,
strong as it should be.
and it takes and it requires, as it should, a
Mm-hmm.
little more dedication, a higher
Right.
mantle of responsibility. These
Right.
teachings are very precious, and you can only simplify them to a degree. Take the solar plexus. So I would recommend anybody to download. There are
Mm-hmm.
so many websites you can download PDF scanned copies of the Master Key.
Mm-hmm.
Also the Science of Getting Rich, and also there's a pamphlet. I know we've done a lot of webinars together where I talk about this little pamphlet that
Mm-hmm.
was written in 1916, 1918 by William Walker Atkinson under the pseudonym Theron Q. Dumont, the
Mm-hmm.
solar plexus or the abdominal brain.
Right.
This is the solar plexus is known as the fourth brain. It's more fully developed even before our brains.
Mm-hmm.
So someone out there, some intelligent designer is prioritizing the creation of the solar plexus even
Right.
over our brain. Although, to be quite honest with you, I used to
Mm-hmm.
be a believer in intelligent. You know it's coming, right?
Yeah.
I I used to be a believer in intelligent design,
Right.
but who in their right mind would put the prostate so close to the bladder? On, give me a break. You know, this I think is some Anunnaki mischief. There would be more
Uh,
involved and going to the bathroom 10 times a night instead of working on our ascension work, you know?
Right.
Occupied with going to the bathroom. The origin to be understood is
Right.
itself of extraterrestrial origin. In that,
Hmm.
before we ever came or fell to Earth,
Right.
the humans originally inhabited what we call the second density. We started out as angelics in dimensions
Right.
4, 5, 6, pretty much rooted in the fifth dimension. Time
Hmm.
fields of Earth, relative to Earth, of course. People also need to understand that what happens in the higher dimensions actually happens in our future. The
Hmm.
angels actually are our future selves. We are their past lives. When angels get on the couch and go into their past lives, and I'm glad I get the chance to
Right.
bring this up. I do believe that a lot of us have past lives, but we also,
Yes.
there is an incarnational or soul family of 12. Every angel, angelic identity, subdivides itself into 12 smaller sections,
Hmm.
and they direct themselves, or they focus themselves in our density, in a harmonic universe one. So it's like the my choice relic
Hmm.
identity. There were 12 of us, so we have a incarnational
Right.
family of 12, and they're in different time space locations within our three-dimensional universe. They're not our past lives, they're simultaneous
Yes.
incarnations.
Hmm.
Now, but the thing is, in this, especially in the time cycle we're in now, we can affect them, they can affect us. We're probably the most present of our incarnational family. There's an incarnational family clock that we teach about, but they're not our past lives. They are simultaneous identities.
Hmm.
The 12 together are part of a larger identity we call an angelic or a soul identity.
Right.
So, but they can affect us with their thoughts, just like we can affect them. And there's a lot of dimensional blend going on now,
Hmm.
simultaneous identities. And when people, or unless people really understand the framework of dimensional structure, for example, that's why I love this. It's such a joy and such an honor and a privilege to be able to share information to help people really understand their true origins and
Right.
destinies, what we were really created to do. Originally inhabited the second density, time fields relative to Earth, where Earth is called Tara.
Right.
Tara. And that the Taran, original human, is known by many names. We know them as the Turanusium. Turaneausiam, Turanusium. And if you know some Scottish Irish Gaelic, you know those songs, Turaluralura, Turalurala. They encode a lot of very secret information.
Right.
What are your roots again? Your ethnic your
I'm
family
Cuban.
member,
I'm
right?
Cuban.
I love it. You know, my parents in that generation, they used to go to Cuba a lot and
Yeah.
party.
Yeah.
Well, I lived in Florida. I lived in Miami. I lived in South Beach, right on Ocean Drive for many, many years. So I got to know a lot of Cuban, very wonderful people, so heart-centered people,
Thank you.
really, you know. Some of my dearest, and still some of my dearest friends. That Earth humanities, our genetic stellar heritage is and always was found and can still be found in the DNA.
Hmm.
What we call the DNA substrand matrices are wave templates that make up the blueprint for human DNA. So in the Earth human lineage, known as the Adam Kadmon or the Adumi Kudmon, there were 7 root races, and what we
Hmm.
call 5 cloister races were seeded. Each root race evolutionary cycle developed one of the first 5 DNA strands within that 12-strand DNA template that we call the diamond sun
Hmm.
DNA. There are double diamonds, there are emeralds, there were some of us that carry even higher uh,
Right.
genetic templates. 12 to 24, even 48 strands. Very few of them, because remember, the Earth grids can only withstand so much coming in, or
Right.
so much coming in at one time, or so much being invoked, right? And this is where
Mhm.
you get a lot of there are a lot of reasons for climatic changes, Earth changes, but some of it is the introduction of higher dimensional beings. They're pure life force,
Mm.
right? In the future, we'll
Mhm.
talk about what's happening on the planet now, the stellar activation cycle, which is really an alignment of interdimensional stargates, black and white holes, and starting in about 1987, just higher and higher dimensional frequency has been coming into the Earth.
Right.
The chakras, the main chakras of the planet, have to open to receive this energy, frequency, and consciousness. What also needs to be understood is when we talk about energy, when we talk about frequency, we are talking about consciousness.
Exactly.
And they've been coming through interdimensional stargates, sets of black and white holes, in the magnetic black hole, out the electrical white hole, onto the Earth. And this is what initiates shift of the ages, the ascension cycles, what we're in now. We're in the midst of these changes. We're talking about
Mhm.
what's happening right now and continuing to happen. We're in the midst of these changes that are so profound, they're so relevant now to us,
Right.
that the sooner we really understand what's happening, the more we'll be able to take an active part in what's going on. Well, the chakras have to be open, the main chakras on the planet.
Mhm.
Interestingly enough, the planetary chakra that's in its closing cycle right now, that has to close on time. Just as the chakras had to open, the vortices had to open on time to
Right.
receive this divine light,
Mhm.
they have to close on time. And the one that's due to close this year, next year, guess where it's located? The epicenter is in Russia, in the Caucasus, but there
Mm.
are many secondary vortexes in the Ukraine.
Mm. Interesting,
So
isn't it?
the plot continues to thicken.
Right. Very true. Very true.
And that's also very important to understand. The cloister races, of which the Indigos are the latest restatement, I think there's no doubt in my mind that anyone and everyone that is tuned into this broadcast, that tunes into the CAN Network, to the Galactic Alliance, to the Dragon's Den, is what we collectively call Indigos.
Right.
And this is really about the continuing saga of the Indigos. We've been coming in for hundreds of years. In the 70s, psychics, clairvoyants, because of their higher sense perception, saw this confluence of the indigo aura,
Mm-hmm.
fields, especially of children, because of their sheer life force. That
Mm-hmm.
was because, again, when you come in with your sixth strand partially activated, the
Mm-hmm.
color associated with the sixth strand is indigo,
Right.
blue, violet. So you will see. So we've been known by so many names throughout history, and it can get confusing, right? Psychic, super psychic, mystic,
Right.
magical, mythical children, children of the Blue Ray Kachina, Melchizedek. There's no direct translation of the word meek.
Right.
In the old language, meek is an acronym. Me-ek, Melchizedek. Yes, the Melchizedeks will inherit the earth. The earth is our inheritance now. We're
Mm-hmm.
moving out of the fifth root race cycle, the Aryan cycle, and we're going into the final root race cycles where all the rest of most of us in 2,000 years ago, the Christ was not able to complete the larger mission. When anybody comes to incarnation embodiment, we
Right.
go through a stargate, we go through the fields, the halls, the flame of Amenti at the Earth's core, then through Earth stargates, and into fetal integration. We leave imprints of our DNA every time we come into incarnation. I don't think that mission was entirely successful 2,000 years ago. But now, because of all the waves of indigos coming in, now I think finally all incoming souls, as they pass through the Earth's core, the Amenti fields, now have the same potential that only the Indigos had at one time, which was to fulfill the full 12-strand DNA template.
Mm.
Right? Now
Right.
remember, the original angelic human races did not have all 12 strands activated.
Right.
You have all 12 strands activated, you're a full avatar or Christed being. The next stage in ascension is soul integration, and that's getting
Mm-hmm.
the fourth, fifth and sixth strands. So, but root race incarnates, we call them the earth seeds,
Mm-hmm.
which are just as important. There's all the different levels of indigos. Each one, yes, they're a level 1, 2, and important. There are waves of indigos that are coming in for the fallen races. And
Right.
we have to understand that they are there. We're all here for a collective purpose.
Correct.
You know,
Yeah.
the root race incarnates we call the earth seeds. The
Mm-hmm.
cloister race incarnates are called the star seeds.
Mm.
And it's the star seeds, the cloister races, that are keep the 12-strand DNA template potentials alive within the earth human gene pool. We represent the advanced cause we were able to come in. We made it all the way here.
Mhm.
Now all incoming souls, and I think everyone on the planet now, has that same potential for ascension.
Very
That
true.
just the indigo type races have had. And that's really, really special. That's a big part of our original creation contract, not to mention being custodians and guardians of the interplanetary star dates. That's really important too.
Mm-hmm. And it's very important for us to awaken and see that knowledge again.
So,
Remember. Well, I just want to know, how would you start a person who's never really, who has curiosity and who wants to know more and open more? How would you start them off?
I would start them off right at the top. I love when I once in a while I get an email or I get a correspondence. Someone I've never. This is all new for me. Well, guess what? No, it's
Right.
not. They're not sort of bogged down with all these. I mean, look at all the experience we've had between all of us, all the CDs, the DVDs, the mentoring, the this, the that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all, and there still seems to be something missing. You know, there seems to be something missing, and this is what I believe is really necessary now. We need to go a little step higher, actually a few steps higher, and I think we're all ready for this. If anybody contacts me, I know they're ready, and I'm certainly ready to meet them at least
Right.
halfway. And the people that
Mm-hmm.
contact, come on in, come on in.
Mm-hmm.
Start with
Mm-hmm.
this paradigm of interdimensional physics, the art and science of ascension, the
Mm-hmm.
posture of love. It's not just people think that it's just the highly technical stuff. And actually, to tell you the truth, the highly technical stuff I think is the easiest to learn. You just learn a new lexicon, right? Like
Right.
it's like learning anything. You don't learn repetition, and plus it
Right.
will stimulate the memory of what's
Mm-hmm.
already inside you. Yes, we're all saying the same thing. Yes, it is inside us, but how to
Mm-hmm.
access it. And the best
Right.
way to access it is to clear all residual karma and miasmic content from the DNA. And it's a big part of our mentorship program. We teach systems of healing facilitation,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual healing facilitation that gets to the core morphogenetic fields, the core blueprints that
Right.
really inform all the other levels. And when you can get it at that level,
Mm-hmm.
where it begins the process of crystallization. And because that's really the only thing that's the information may be coming in clean, but as it's filtered through DNA that carries distortions, you're not going to get it clean. So as
Right.
clean as the information may be
Mm.
coming in, the translation on the other end, because the DNA is really a translation transduction mechanism. So the best way to get this, or
Mm-hmm.
certainly absolutely necessary, is to clear up what we call to understand the true nature of karma and the true nature of the miasmic body and what happens when we don't think correctly,
Mm-hmm.
how that affects not only us, but our simultaneous incarnations and even members of our incarnational families, past, present, and future. this is an interesting thing. I want to kind of like tie everything up. In my if a human discovers, if one
Sure.
of us discovers that on what we call an incarnational family clock, there are like 12 digits that represent your solar incarnational family. Some are in positions that they have more. They have a larger DNA template. They have a greater potential, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
to ascend. If you know, and there are ways that you can know this, we teach energy sensing technique, grid scanning,
Mm-hmm.
dimensional grid scanning. A lot of us are having making the contact, you know, this sort of thing, because
Mm-hmm.
now initiating contact or contact has been initiated, usually in the dream state. For people out there, it really benefits. If I can give some practical advice, just before you go to sleep at night, just affirm to yourself, I am awake and aware in the dream state.
Mm.
I am awake. That's a powerful affirmation.
Yes, it
I
is.
am awake and aware in the dream state, and I remember awake and aware in the dream
Mm-hmm.
state, and remember and record and keep a journal. I didn't for years. I didn't, and I really keep a written record of your contact experience.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this contact will take place in the astral, in the dream. That's a place we naturally go. When we sleep, part of our consciousness disconnects and goes into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And for the higher dimensional beings to just unplug themselves a little bit, go down in frequency to meet us in the astral, that's very safe for them too. Like in the beginning, they don't have to manifest fully directly too. So it's not like a lot of people when they talk about ET contact or interdimensional contact, it doesn't have to be an angel wafting in through an open window or
No.
appearing at the foot of your bed. It can be somebody you know, somebody you already know, somebody you're going to meet.
Mm-hmm.
It can be soulmates. It can be a one-nighter, for God's sake. Whatever you need, whatever you need to make that exchange,
Right. Right.
that sharing. But sometimes, it's. But in my case, or in anybody's case, once if there are a conscious decision to accelerate personal evolution can be made. Once you've assembled the codes you need to assemble
Mm-hmm.
that it inherited from this life, then an incarnate, any one of us can open communication with their soul family.
Mm-hmm.
That can be taught. That's usually a heart opening.
Right.
And request that something called a soul braid can take place, through which merged with that of a larger incarnation. Because in a soul braid, and this is
Mm-hmm.
key, the present incarnate or incarnation begins to assemble the codes from its next incarnation, from a future incarnation into its present body, and works to fulfill not only your life purposes, but the life purposes of your next incarnation.
Mm-hmm.
That's serious soulmate action. And I think a lot of us are here because I think our parents may have been true soulmates. I think we're here meeting,
Yes.
to
Yes.
do the higher work. And it's challenging for some people. You can wake up next to somebody you've slept with for 20 years ago. Who are you? And that needs to be okay if it's that radical.
Right.
Usually it's not that radical. You know,
But you're like, oh, okay, why am I here?
and and then what's required then is to
Mm.
have courage and be brave, to
Right.
let go
Mm-hmm. Very true.
as we get into the closing. It doesn't serve you, no matter how short-term benefits. When you're on the upward spiral, there's nothing worth going back.
No.
We've come so far. This is probably the closest we may come individually, collectively. See, I believe that most, if not all of us, have come from the future. We're not here because of a succession of past lives. Nothing is worth moving going backwards at this time. We've come so far. We still have a ways to go,
Hmm.
but I think individually and collectively, we meet in the Dragon's Den. We meet in the Galactic Alliance, and all these things really help us come together. Um, like the things I'm going to be doing a lot of work with Mariana
Right.
coming up. We were planning this
Hmm.
year. Well, that's going to be delayed. But we thought, and instead of taking these trips, going all the way here and going, there's a lot of places really locally,
Yeah.
where people can meet. I'd like the Jersey Shore,
Hmm.
any place can be spiritual, spiritualized. We are spirit made flesh. So you don't have to go to Machu Picchu. You don't have to go to Giza.
Right.
You can go to the mountains in Ohio. You can go to the Jersey Shore. You can go to the Catskills.
Yeah.
You can go to Kansas, Dead
Hmm.
Center. You can go to the Southwest. So we're planning some interesting trips that people don't have to. It doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. Because the thing
Yeah.
is, the work needs to be effective and it needs to be in a form that people can use.
Right.
And our all doing is to that end. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. And thank you for having me on the program.
Phil, it was wonderful to have you. I am so glad that you were able to be here because I know the time difference is big. Um, but it's just please make sure you come back. And the audience, here's Phil's email, so please contact him. If you want to know more information, if you're curious, you could hear this again and again if you want to. You know where you can find us. I am very grateful, as always, Phil, to get to see you and get to talk to you. And please hold on when we close. I want to say thank you to our audience. And as always, many blessings. And I love you. Bye.
Bye bye.